Texas is building a city from scratch in the middle of nowhere. And that's just one of 8 absolutely insane projects turning the Lone Star State into something that looks less like America and more like a sci-fi movie set. We're talking underground highways, the world's largest battery, and a spaceport that makes NASA look like a toy rocket enthusiast. By 2028, Texas won't just be different. So how did a state famous for BBQ and cowboy hats become America's testing ground for the future? Stick around, because some of these projects sound so crazy, you'll think I'm making them up. Let's start with the big one. The absolutely bonkers one. Project 1, Telosa, the $400 billion city of tomorrow. Somewhere in the desert between Dallas and El Paso, a billionaire named Mark Lohr is planning to build a city for 5 million people, from nothing. That's right, 5 million. That's more people than currently live in Phoenix, Philadelphia, or San Antonio. And this isn't some distant fever dream. Construction is slated to begin in phases, with the first residents moving in by 2030. The guy behind this? He sold Jet.com to Walmart for over $3 billion. So yeah, he's got the cash. But here's where it gets weird. Telosa isn't just another suburb with better Wi-Fi. Lohr wants to build what he calls the most sustainable city in the world. We're talking net zero emissions, autonomous vehicles only, buildings covered in solar panels, and a water system that recycles every single drop. The centerpiece, a massive tower called the Equitism Tower. Think if the Burj Khalifa and a terrarium had a baby. This thing will be surrounded by a membrane that collects water from the air, acts as a solar panel, and filters pollution. It's like someone watched a bunch of TED Talks and said, "Hold my kombucha." But here's the kicker. Lohr wants the land itself to be owned communally. Residents don't buy property, they lease it. All the revenue from that land goes back into city services, infrastructure, and community programs. It's capitalism meets socialism meets Silicon Valley optimism. And it's either going to be the most revolutionary urban experiment in a century or the world's most expensive ghost town. Texas gets the bragging rights here. Why? Because unlike California or New York, Texas said yes. No state income tax, cheaper land, and a government that practically rolls out the red carpet for big projects. Plus the weather. You can build year-round without worrying about blizzards shutting down construction for 6 months. Now, will Telosa actually work? Nobody knows. Every city planner on Earth will be taking notes. Well, at least we'll have some really cool ruins for future archaeologists. Project 2, the I-35 overhaul, burying Austin's busiest highway. If you've ever driven through Austin, you know, I-35 is a parking lot disguised as a highway. It's consistently ranked as one of the most congested corridors in America. Sitting in traffic there doesn't build character. It builds rage. So Texas is doing something absolutely wild. They're burying parts of it, underground. We're talking about lowering sections of the highway below ground level, then capping it with parks, buildings, and actual usable urban space on top. The price tag, around $8 billion. This isn't just about traffic. It's about stitching Austin back together. See, when I-35 was built in the 1960s, it carved the city in half like a concrete machete. East Austin, historically home to Black and Latino communities, got separated from the rest of the city. Property values tanked. Businesses struggled. Decades later, the highway is still this massive scar running through downtown. The plan is to create what they're calling cap and stitch segments. Imagine Central Park, but built on top of a highway. Pedestrian bridges, green spaces, mixed-use developments. You'd never know there are thousands of cars zooming underneath. Similar projects have worked in cities like Seattle and Dallas, where they buried freeways, and suddenly neighborhoods that were dying came back to life. But here's the thing. $8 billion is a lot of money. And Austin's not exactly known for finishing projects on time or on budget. The airport expansion took years longer than planned. The transit system is still a work in progress. Critics are already sharpening their pitchforks, saying this is just another boondoggle that'll end up costing twice as much and taking twice as long. Still, if they pull it off, Austin goes from a city strangled by its own infrastructure to a model for urban renewal. And that's worth betting on. Project 3, the Texas Hyperloop Corridor. Remember when Elon Musk said he could shoot people through a tube at 700 miles per hour? Everybody laughed. Then some people stopped laughing and started writing checks. The plan is to connect Dallas, Austin, Houston, and San Antonio with a high-speed transportation system that makes regular trains look like they're powered by hamsters. We're talking about cutting a 4-hour drive down to 30 minutes. You could have breakfast tacos in Austin, a lunch meeting in Houston, and still make it back for dinner in Dallas without flying. The technology is basically this. You put a pod in a low-pressure tube, eliminate most of the air resistance, and use magnetic levitation to propel it forward. The result? Speeds that would make a Formula One car jealous. Virgin Hyperloop and other companies have already run successful tests. The tech works. The question is whether it works at scale, and whether anyone can afford to build it. Cost estimates for the Texas route range anywhere from $20 to $40 billion. That's a lot of uncertainty. And Texas isn't exactly known for its love of public transportation. This is a state where people drive to check their mailbox. Convincing Texans to hop in a tube and get flung across the state at near supersonic speeds is going to take some marketing genius. But here's why Texas makes sense as the testing ground. The 4 major cities form an almost perfect triangle, all within a few hundred miles of each other. The distances are ideal for Hyperloop technology. Too short and regular trains make more sense. Too long and planes are easier. Texas is in the Goldilocks zone. Plus, the economic impact could be massive. Suddenly, living in San Antonio and working in Houston becomes feasible. Companies could distribute their operations across multiple cities without worrying about logistics. Real estate markets would shift. Urban planning would have to adapt. It's the kind of project that doesn't just connect cities. It fundamentally changes how people think about distance. Is it going to happen by 2028? Probably not in full. But test tracks and pilot segments? Absolutely. And once people see it working, once they experience that 30-minute commute from Austin to Houston, the skepticism will evaporate faster than water in a West Texas summer. Project 4. The Texas high-speed rail misses Dallas to Houston in 90 minutes. Okay, forget the Hyperloop for a second. Let's talk about something that's actually under construction right now. The Texas high-speed rail is a bullet train that will connect Dallas and Houston in 90 minutes. Not a concept, not a proposal. An actual physical train that's already breaking ground. The system is based on Japan's Shinkansen technology, the same trains that have been operating flawlessly for over 60 years. We're talking about trains that hit 200 miles per hour and arrive on time down to the second. The Japanese don't mess around with their trains. They treat punctuality like a sacred duty. Texas Central, the company building this thing, has already acquired most of the land needed for the route. They've finalized deals with landowners, navigated environmental reviews, and secured billions in financing. The route will run roughly parallel to Highway 45, cutting straight through the middle of Texas. A station in the Brazos Valley will serve as the midpoint stop, connecting College Station and the surrounding areas. Here's why this matters. Right now, if you want to get from Dallas to Houston, you have 3 options. Drive for 4 hours and hate your life. Fly for an hour, but spend another 2 hours dealing with airports, security, and baggage claim. Or take a bus and question your life choices. The bullet train gives you a 4th option. Downtown Dallas to downtown Houston in 90 minutes. No traffic, no TSA, no stress. And unlike a lot of mega projects that promise the moon and deliver a rock, this one has serious momentum. The Federal Railroad Administration gave it the green light. Private investors from Japan and Europe are backing it. The technology is proven. This isn't experimental. It's just expensive. The estimated cost is somewhere around $30 billion. Critics say it'll never turn a profit. Supporters point to every other bullet train system in the world and say, yeah, they all said that too. The Shinkansen was supposed to bankrupt Japan. Instead, it became the backbone of their economy. It becomes the first state in America with a true high-speed rail system. Not light rail, not commuter trains. A legitimate world-class bullet train. That's a pretty big deal for a state that once thought public transportation was for communists. Project 5. SpaceX Starbase ends. The private spaceport taking over South Texas. Let's head down to the southern tip of Texas, right where the Rio Grande dumps into the Gulf of Mexico. There's a little town called Boca Chica. Population? Barely registers. Nearest city? Brownsville. About 20 miles away. It's the kind of place where you go to disappear, to fish, to avoid humanity. Now it's the most important piece of real estate in the space industry. Elon Musk decided that boring old Cape Canaveral wasn't cutting it anymore. Too many regulations. Too much red tape. Too many people telling him what he couldn't do. So he bought up a bunch of land in South Texas and started building what he calls Starbase. The goal? Launch rockets to Mars, not in some distant future. Now, SpaceX has already launched multiple Starship prototypes from this site. Some exploded spectacularly. Some made it further than anyone expected. Each test brings them closer to creating a fully reusable rocket system, capable of carrying 100 tons of cargo and 100 people to Mars in a single trip. If that sounds insane, that's because it is. It's also exactly the kind of insane that changes history. The facility itself is growing faster than a Houston suburb. Launch pads, production facilities, fuel farms, control centers. They're building rockets in what looks like a giant tent. The Starship prototypes tower over the landscape like steel grain silos designed by someone who watched too much Star Wars. And the pace of construction? Unreal. Musk pushes his teams to operate at startup speed, not government contractor speed. Texas loves it. The state offered tax breaks, minimal interference, and a whole lot of enthusiasm. Local officials in Brownsville are already planning for the economic boom. Hotels, restaurants, infrastructure upgrades. They're expecting Starbase to become a major tourist destination. People will fly in from around the world just to watch a rocket launch. It's basically Cape Canaveral 2.0, except this time it's in the middle of nowhere and run by a guy who tweets memes at 3 a.m. But it's not all smooth sailing. Environmental groups are furious. The area around Boca Chica is ecologically sensitive. Sea turtles nest on the beaches. Rare birds inhabit the wetlands. Every time SpaceX blows up a rocket, debris rains down on protected habitats. Lawsuits are piling up. The FAA keeps having to step in. Still, Musk keeps building. And by 2028, Starbase could very well be the busiest spaceport in America. Maybe the world. If SpaceX succeeds in making orbital launches routine and affordable, the entire space industry shifts, literally and figuratively, as the place where humanity's journey to Mars began. Project 6. The Texas Energy Storage System, MONBL, a battery the size of 40 football fields. Here's a question nobody was asking in 2010 but everybody's asking now. Where do you store all the energy from solar panels and wind turbines when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing? You need a really, really big battery. Texas is building exactly that, near the town of Odessa in West Texas. Construction is underway on what will be the largest battery energy storage system in the world. We're talking about 3,000 megawatt-hours of capacity. That's enough to power 300,000 homes for an entire day. Why does Texas need this? Because the state's energy grid is kind of a mess. Texas runs its own grid, separate from the rest of the country. This gives them independence. But it also means when things go wrong, nobody can bail them out. Remember the 2021 winter storm that knocked out power for millions? That exposed some serious cracks in the system. West Texas has some of the best wind resources in the world. Solar farms are popping up across the desert like mushrooms after rain. The problem is, renewables are intermittent. The wind doesn't blow on command. The sun sets every night. You need storage. Enter the giant battery. Technically, it's thousands of smaller batteries working together. But who's counting? The system can soak up excess energy when production is high and release it when demand spikes or generation drops. It's basically a giant capacitor for the entire region. The cost is around $2 billion. For perspective, that's less than a quarter of what the state spent dealing with the 2021 blackout aftermath. If this system prevents even one major outage, it pays for itself. And the implications go beyond Texas. If this works, other states will copy it. Suddenly, renewable energy becomes way more reliable, and the argument against solar and wind loses its biggest talking point. Critics say batteries degrade over time, that the technology isn't proven at this scale, that it's a waste of taxpayer money. Supporters point out that doing nothing isn't an option. Texas's population is exploding. Energy demand is skyrocketing. The grid has to evolve or it'll collapse under its own weight. By 2028, this battery system will be operational. Or the next summer heat wave pushes the grid to its limits. We'll find out if it was worth it. Project 7. The Texas Water Plan as Reeng. Nearing the state's entire water supply, let's talk about something way less sexy than rockets and bullet trains. Water. Specifically, the fact that Texas is running out of it. Texas is huge. Parts of it are swampy and humid. Parts of it are straight-up desert. The state's water supply comes from rivers, reservoirs, aquifers, and a whole lot of hoping it rains. But the population is growing faster than almost anywhere else in the country. By 2030, Texas is expected to have over 30 million people. That's a lot of thirsty folks. The Texas Water Plan is a $100 billion effort to make sure the state doesn't run dry. We're talking about new reservoirs, desalination plants, pipelines, recycling systems, and aquifer recharge projects. It's not one megaproject. It's hundreds of smaller ones all working together. One of the biggest pieces is a proposed reservoir in East Texas called Boaz Dark Lake. It's already under construction and will supply water to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Another major component is expanding desalination along the Gulf Coast. The state is experimenting with managed aquifer recharge, which is a fancy way of saying they're trying to refill it artificially by channeling water back underground. This isn't glamorous. You can't post cool renderings on Instagram. But if Texas screws this up, none of the other projects matter. You can't build cities in the desert without water. You can't grow crops. You can't sustain millions of people. Water is the invisible foundation that everything else sits on. By 2028, most of these water projects will be well underway. New reservoirs will be filling up. Desalination plants will be coming online. And hopefully, Texas will have bought itself another few decades before it has to have this conversation again. Project 8. The Texas Medical Center expansion Meet Us 10 to the world's health capital. Houston's Texas Medical Center is already the largest medical complex in the world. Bigger than the Vatican. Bigger than the Pentagon. It's got 21 hospitals, 8 specialty institutions, and employs over 100,000 people. If it were its own city, it would be one of the biggest employers in Texas. And they're not done. Not even close. The TMC is in the middle of a massive expansion that will add millions of square feet of research space, new hospitals, advanced treatment centers, and a whole new district focused on biotech innovation. The goal is to make Houston the undisputed global capital of medicine and medical research. Not just in America, in the world. Part of this is the TMC-3 Collaborative Building, a giant innovation hub where researchers, startups, and established companies can work side by side. Think of it like a Silicon Valley incubator. Except instead of apps, they're developing cancer treatments and artificial organs. The building is designed to encourage collisions between disciplines. Geneticists working next to data scientists, next to surgeons. The best ideas happen at the intersections. They're also expanding into precision medicine and AI-driven diagnostics. Houston is positioning itself at the forefront of using artificial intelligence to detect diseases earlier, design personalized treatments, and predict health outcomes. Hospitals in the TMC are already piloting systems that can read medical scans faster and more accurately than human radiologists. The expansion includes new facilities focused on pediatric care, neuroscience, and infectious disease research. Post-pandemic, everybody suddenly realized that investing in pandemic preparedness isn't optional. The TMC is building state-of-the-art labs specifically designed to handle the next global health crisis, whatever that might be. Why does this matter for the rest of the country? Because medical breakthroughs don't stay in Houston. They spread. A new cancer treatment developed at MD Anderson gets used everywhere. A surgical technique pioneered at Texas Children's Hospital becomes the standard of care worldwide. Houston's medical innovations ripple out across the entire healthcare system. By 2028, the Texas Medical Center will be even more dominant than it already is. And Houston will cement its reputation as the place where the future of medicine is being written. So there you have it. 8 absolutely massive projects that are turning Texas into something unrecognizable. A new city rising from the desert. Highways getting buried and replaced with parks. Trains that hit 200 miles per hour. Rockets launching to Mars from a beach. The world's largest battery keeping the lights on. A $100 billion scramble to secure water for the future. and a medical complex that's basically trying to cure everything. By 2028, Texas won't just be bigger. It'll be fundamentally different. The landscape will look different. The economy will work differently. The way people move around, get their power, and receive healthcare will all be transformed. And here's the thing. Love it or hate it, Texas is doing something most states can only dream about. It's taking massive swings. Some of these projects will fail. Some will go over budget and behind schedule. But some will succeed spectacularly. And those successes will reshape not just Texas but the entire country. Because when Texas figures something out, everybody else pays attention. And everybody else copies it.